So let's say start. So locking technique. Okay. Why do we need a locking technique in kernel programming or any programming? Forget about the kernel programming. Okay. Why do we need a synchronization or what do you mean by locking technique? Let's start with this discussion and then we will take it forward. Okay. So let's make it more interactive so that you will see that. I mean, basically we'll come to know if we are missing something. So we'll come to know from here and there, and then we'll take it forward. So why do we need a synchronization in programming language? Any thought? Any guess? Or what do you mean by locking technique? Guys, no? Anyone? Okay. What do you mean by concurrency?
parallel
At
execution.
least open up. Otherwise, it will be like I will be keep on talking, and I'm not sure. I mean, whether you people will be how much you people
Yeah,
will be grasping and all, right? So it will help me to understand that yes, you people are at least try to give your input or add your input on this topic. Okay. So what is concurrency?
parallel programming.
Yes. Any other thought? Okay. So good input. Parallel programming. Synchronization. What is synchronization? We'll talk about all this thing. So no need to worry about. Okay. What is synchronization? Sometimes you can see in office and people say that you need to sync with this team or you need to sync with this guy. What does it mean?
Mutual cooperation.
Yes. Yes. What else? Okay, so these are basically synchronization and concurrency, locking, and all, right. We are going to talk about this. So basically, the concurrency is nothing but if you talk about the concurrency, it's like things happening at the same time. Okay, so nowadays, if you see hardware, sorry, it's a multi-processor based, right? So your multiple application can be getting executed parallelly. Somebody has told that parallel programming, right? So in parallel, your multiple application can be getting executed. This basically when I'm talking about the application, or I can let me cut short. The same piece of code, I will talk about the same piece of code will be getting executed from multiple places or from multiple processors. Okay, that is nothing but the concurrency. Okay, the same things happening at the same time. So sources of concurrency in Linux are multiple processors, as I talked about. Hardware interrupts. How the hardware, I mean, people who were there in the previous session, how the hardware interrupt will be coming into picture in concurrency? Any thought, any idea? Hardware interrupt or the software interrupt? No.
Getting an interrupt while program is execution.
See, the thing is like, for an example, let's take an example. Suppose you are using a buffer into your, let's talk about the interview perspective as well, because in interview, most of the interview people focuses on these areas, synchronization, uh, locking, all this concurrency and all. Okay. So let's take an example. You have a buffer. Okay. And that buffer basically, let me open something here. I have not connected my device. So let's talk about that. This is a buffer, okay? And this buffer basically, say P1 is using this buffer, okay? So P1 is using this buffer, and this buffer might be getting used by multiple processes as well. Suppose for an example, P2, you can take a P2 as well. This buffer can be also used by your during interrupt context. Okay. So what will happen is like, if this is the case, then if you see the same variable, or I mean, if you are basically feeling uh, awkward with the buffer, let's talk about this. This is kind of a global variable which is getting used during multiple context. So if that is the case, then what will happen is like, this might be getting changed from the multiple places, right? There are other ways, right? So it can be a hardware interrupt, it can be, I mean, this is ISR routine, basically this interrupt service routine. So interrupt service routine might be there, that the same buffer we are going to use, and this from ISR we are going, I mean, we may change the buffer content. Okay. So concurrency, or the same piece of code, or the same piece of uh, buffer, the same buffer which are going to use by your one process can be getting used by multiple processes as well, and it can be also used by ISR. So it can be your hardware, I mean, hardware interrupt ISR or software interrupt. Okay. The kernel timers. The timers is, and again, another. What is timers, by the way? What do you mean by timers? Anyone?
Don't know.
Okay. So timer is a basically, so timer is a kind of a, so if you talk about the timer, right? Timer is a huge topic basically. So kernel timer is, you people might have heard about the GFIS, hertz, and all, right? So kernel timers is a timer basically. If you take a look at the cat proc interrupts, you can see the timer routine as well. So timer is basically, again, module which is running inside the kernel, and which is taking care of your timing stubs. Okay. Work queue is nothing but bottom half technique for your ISR. Kernel preemption. Kernel preemption is nothing but one process can preempt the other process, right? That means a low priority task or a low priority process can be getting preempted by a higher priority process. That is called a preemption. Okay. So these are the context, basically these are the areas from where the same piece of code, or you basically the concurrency can happen. Okay. So things happening at the same time. So basically when you are, so let's take an example. As I was talking about, you have a app 1 which is running on CPU 1, app 2 which is running on CPU 2, and say both app are interested to open a driver file. Okay. So they just call driver open, and inside the driver open there is a uh, there is a variable called counter. Okay. So what will happen is like, this might be possible that, do you think that the race condition will happen in this code? Any idea? This is a single instruction. Okay. By the way, this is one line instructions. So do you think that the race condition can happen here?
If it is a local variable, probably not, right?
Okay. I will take this input. Okay. Say this is a global variable. Okay. Let's talk about, this is a global variable, because this is a counter. So we are maintaining a global counter. Okay. So for an example, how many times your open, I mean, device open has been called. So let's say that we are maintaining a counter, and the counter will basically will tell us that how many times you have opened this driver file or device file. So what will happen?
It get incremented each time, each app calling.
Yes. So for an example, let's say that app one is getting executed at, and this, by the way, this piece is this the code. This code is common for both app. So app one is also, so basically the, if you take a look at the kernel space and the user space, right? So these app one and app two are the user space, and this area, this piece of code is into kernel space. So your multiple applications or multiple user space code can call the same piece of code which is there into the kernel space, right? So
There is a possibility of a race condition here.
yes, yes. How is it? Because it's a single instruction, right? People can say that, oh, this is a one line instruction, then how can there will be a race condition?
So there's, as for example, let's say app one got the first CPU one,
Okay.
and I'm updating counter one, counter let it be zero, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it will upgrade to, let's say, before updating,
Mm-hmm.
and since it has a zero value before updating, I did a switch, and the other part, since it's a global variable, that's the important part, right? Counter can be accessed by other CPUs, correct? So
So let's say that, let me just put this statement here. Okay. I mean, just C equals to C plus 1. C is a counter. Okay.
yeah,
So this is one line. I mean, this is basically, I mean, for C programming, it is one line instruction. But I will talk about more into this. Now, you were talking about, so C, say, let's say that C at the very beginning was initialized to 0.
yeah.
Now, how it will happen?
So if let's say I app one got a CPU one, right, and then
Okay.
after that there is the before incrementing,
Mm-hmm.
let's say other app got a CPU. The
So
CPU
before incrementing means,
means the value was cached in this buffer as zero, and the next CPU it was cached as zero again because
okay.
the value is not incremented.
Yeah.
So it has incremented, and the CPU two increments it one, but
Mm-hmm.
in CPU one it is still zero.
Yes.
That is
Yes.
one aspect
Yes.
where it can have that. Again, the
Mm-hmm.
overall value should be two, but it is one on both sides. I mean, one actually. Once you until unless before updating it, I just like it depends on the type of write what we do as well.
Mm-hmm.
If it is, but again here cached value is there, right? C is cached, so again it will be zero only in one CPU one, what you're talking. So
Yeah.
even though I update, the CPU one will have a value of zero. Once
Mm-hmm.
it updates, again it will push to the registers or wherever global variable we have that segment,
Mm-hmm.
till it will push the value one instead of two. That is one aspect.
Yes. So what Praveen is telling you, that is perfectly fine. So let's talk about the instruction level, right? Because when, I mean, from the high, uh, C is nothing but a, I mean, high level programming language, right? I mean, people say that it's a low level as well, but these instructions is a high level, right? Now, when we say that counter plus plus, basically it's a counter equals to counter plus one. So if we come down, basically, for an example, let's say that what Praveen has talked about, the same thing we have inside the instructions level. So for an example, let's say the instructions are getting executed. For an example, these are the three instructions for C equals to C plus 1 or counter equals to counter plus 1. Now say register R0, we have loaded this to the R0, counter has been basically assigned to R0, and then add is load, add, store are the instructions. Okay. So by the way, these are the assembly level instructions we are talking about. We'll not go into depth of the assembly, but just a highlight of this. Okay. So how we are doing is counter equals to counter plus 1. We have assigned counter value to the R0, and then we are incrementing this R0. I mean, basically add R0 by 1, and then store R0 content to the counter. So this is the instruction which we are doing here. The same instructions will be getting executed on your CPU2 and CPU1. Now, for example, let's say that load R0 counter we have done. So these instructions came, I mean, both these basically load R0 counter has been executed on both CPU1 and CPU2. At the same time, then what will happen? This will just make, if R0 value is 1, this will make 1, this will make 1, right? So in that case, basically what will happen? The value will be, the counter value will be 1. But if you take a look at that here, what will happen is like app driver open has been getting called by two applications. So value should be 2, right? Counter value should be 2, but it has not been incremented by 2, it has been incremented by 1 because the same instructions, it's a concurrency basically. Okay, so it's a concurrency basically. The multiple instruct, I mean, basically the same piece of code are getting executed at multiple places or multiple CPUs. So this is an example of a concurrency, or this we can say as a race condition. Okay, this we can say as a race condition. So how you are going to avoid this type of things? This is what this is nothing but this you can basically avoid using synchronization or locking or some other means. Okay, so the race condition, the main ORI we have to do is how to avoid the race condition, or we should make sure whatever we are interested to get the value, that value should be, I mean, when we are going to read it, we should get that appropriate value. Okay, so here app1, app2. So which is the basically, which statement is a uh, basically a what we call it as a, so we have observed that this is a race condition happening, but which is the critical piece of code here? There is something called, we also call it as a critical section of the code, right? So which is the critical section here? The counter plus plus is the critical section, and this is how we are going to avoid, this is what we are going to talk about today topic. Okay, so there are other ways that you can avoid this race condition. So the locking technique is, we are going to talk about the locking technique. And by the way, there are the other ways that the atomic operations and all I will talk about in other class. Okay, so or let's talk about atomic, what is the atomic operations? Anyone has used this atomic variable? Why do we need an atomic variable?
So in case of any small piece of code that has to be synchronized, so usually we use this atomic operations.
Okay, so but why do we need it?
Yeah, I guess it is also a kind of synchronization something.
Let's take a look at the, anyone has seen the atomic
Hello?
definition, atomic underscore T?
Hello?
Hello?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is Praveen.
Yes,
Uh,
Praveen, please go ahead.
I'm sorry, am I barging in? All right.
No, 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 no.
Sure. Actually, atomic operations, right? You want some counters like the previous one, right? So you
Mhm.
want the increment to happen without any interference of any other process or any other, what to say, it should not be context switch while incrementing. So the operation should be singleton sort of thing. So once I say plus plus means it should be incremented without any other CPU interventions. So that type of things are done using, and this is only for one like one variable sort of thing, single variable numbers of counters which we have.
Mhm.
So in that cases we know there is only one operation, one type of operation, either one or two type of minus, plus, or test something. So based upon the incremented value, first we want to test it, either it is 0 or 1, something like that. So we know there are only one or two operations, plus and minus.
Yes, yes. So basically, what Praveen was talking about, if you want to increment or decrement any variable without any interruption, then there is another way in Linux kernel. There is a something called atomic underscore t, which you can use it. So if you are going to define this counter variable as a atomic underscore t, and when you are going to put this counter plus plus, this will make sure that when this is going to get executed, the instructions will basically, these instructions will not be interrupted in between. Okay, so that is basically you can get these things using atomic variables. Now there are, I think there are read write arithmetic operations supported with atomic variables. So these are the operations which you, if you can take a look: atomic increment, atomic decrement, atomic add, atomic subtract, atomic increment and test. So you can go through this. So basically this is, if you take a look at the definition of this atomic underscore t, it is nothing but an integer type. Okay, and the header file is basically atomic.h. Okay, so you just take a look about this. uh, let's talk about more to the race condition, and then we will deep into the programming. Okay, so race condition, as I talked about, app1 app2, say driver read, driver write. Now these are the two different functions we are going to talk about. Okay, so they say there is a driver read and driver write. There will be set of instructions inside driver read. We are going to take a look into the code as well, and there are set of instructions which will be there inside your driver write. Now, do you think that there will be some piece of code which is, or some piece of code which is getting shared among both the function? Any thought, any idea? We have two different functions. Now I want to basically we want to make sure that whether there will be a race condition if there are two different functions and these are basically getting called by two different type. Will there be a chance of having a race condition there?
Yes, sir. Yes, because the code is saying that it is reading from the same list and writing. If it is reading from the same list and writing to the same list, that the two functions
Mm-hmm.
which are referring to list, if the list is same,
Mm-hmm.
then say two threads are simultaneously accessing read and write.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the thread which is attempting to read may be reading the old data while the write is parallelly happening, right?
Yes.
Yes, so
Yes.
then it's a corrupted data getting by the read when the write is parallelly happening by another thread.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Any real time example?
uh, Maybe we can take like I2C bus read and write functions.
Okay. I2C bus read and write. Okay. Yes. Yes.
Yes. For suppose through I2C bus you are writing to a EEPROM,
Mm-hmm.
and parallelly another thread is attempting a write operation.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That will be one example. Any other example?
Mm, yeah, that's what I know. So,
The
Or we have.
earlier example itself, the counter which you are referring to,
Sorry.
the counter you are referring earlier example where one is the increment counter itself.
Yes. The other one example could be, I mean, we might have heard about, or we have studied in our engineering as well, right? The reader and writer problem, right? Or the producer and consumer problem, right? Say that means the consumer should only consume when there is something, right, from the producer. Otherwise, it should be in waiting state. So similarly, if there is a read, suppose if there is a write happening, you basically, during the write, you have to make sure that if the same, if it is going to be the same piece of code which is getting accessed by your read function, then this will make sense. If the same buffer or the same list is not there to the read function, then it doesn't make any sense. So here, if you take a look at this, the pseudo code, it's like code to read from the list. Basically, there is a list, linked list, which is getting access from both the driver function, driver write and driver read. So this list is basically, it's a basically a global list, and we need to make sure if any kind of operations which we are going to do inside this, we have to basically say that this should get synchronized. Okay, so it's not like that if we are writing something and in between somebody is reading it, right? So it may be possible that he will not be able to get the latest value, right? So this is how you are going to avoid. So the locking mechanism, using the locking mechanism in Linux kernel, we can avoid this. Now, those who are from the kernel background, this the same basically. So we are talking from the kernel perspective. The same can happen in user space as well. Okay, so the same can happen in user space as well. And user space, if we are talking about the user space, what how it will happen in user space? Any thought? Using the threading mechanism. Okay, so if parallel threads are there, which is basically, if you take a look at the threads, right? Thread had its own stack, right? But apart from a stack, it shares all information of its process, right? So like the data segment, if something is there inside the data segment, which will be getting shared among multiple threads, right? So that piece of code, we have to make sure that when one thread is writing, or we have to make sure that it should be synchronized in such a way that it should not impact, or the value should be whatever we are expecting, the value should be there with the other thread. Okay, so this is that's why the locking is there inside your application programming as well. Okay, but we are not going to talk about the application programming. It's like the same mechanism can be used there as well. Okay, now let's go to the coding little bit, and then again we'll come back to the slides. So before going to the coding, let me talk about so we talked about the race condition. Now, how to avoid this race condition is using the locking mechanism. And using this locking mechanism, basically we are going to use something called a mutex. Okay. So you people have heard about the mutex. Mutex is nothing but a mutual exclusion, which is helpful to avoid the race. Okay. Basically, this is a locking mechanism, and we are going to see that how to gain a lock, how to release a lock. Okay, so what is mutex? Any other definition for the mutex from your side? Why mutex is a locking mechanism? It's not a we say that uh, do you think that mutex and semaphore is same? Semaphore is another topic, by the way, so we'll talk about that as well. But interview question, this is an interview question. Okay, lot of places people have asked, I mean, basically they keep on asking if you are going for OS interview, or going for say mm, application programming interview. What is difference between semaphore and mutex? Both
Friendship.
are synchronization primitive, right?
Yeah.
So what is the difference between these two? Will
Ownership and signaling.
sorry,
Ownership and signaling.
signaling. Okay, what is signaling you mean here?
I mean, in terms of semaphore and talking about.
Okay, what is that
Yeah.
signaling? I mean, basically I just wanted to know.
Mm, I mean, so once any resource acquired, so it will just signal the other resources.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
Yeah.
so why we should not use this mutex and semaphore in interrupt context? Last session we have talked about interrupt, and somewhere I at the end of the session I was talking about you should not use mutex into interrupt context.
Maybe sleep conditions because of.
Yes. So mutex is a kind of a synchronization mechanism or locking technique which is used to avoid the race condition, and this has something called as a ownership. What do you mean by ownership? Somebody has talked about the ownership. Mutex has ownership concept, but semaphore doesn't have an ownership concept. Apart from this, I don't think any difference between mutex and semaphore is there. Okay. Yeah, there are a little bit difference, like if you take a look at the mutex structure and semaphore structure, basically the size will be little bit different. Okay. So the size of your mutex structure and semaphore structure will be kind of a I think if we can open and see from x86 perspective. Okay. x86 architecture perspective, it is little bit basically the semaphore size is more than your mutex. Okay. So we will also see that let's first see the ho- what is the how mutex is defined inside the kernel. Okay. So the header file which is for mutex is let me open the code. Basically c scope. CD. It's you can just type mutex.h, the header file. It is inside include linux mutex.h. Okay, so the first one. Now if you take a look at the basically the comment blocking mutual exclusion locks, so it is a locking technique which we are going to take a look. Okay. Now let's go and see the struct mutex. A struct mutex is a structure. It has couple of members here. Okay. So the first member is atomic underscore long underscore t. Atomic we talked about. And if you see the variable name, it's a the member name, it's a honor. Okay. So that is why. And there inside this, there is a spin lock. I will talk about a spin lock in more details after this, once we finish this uh, mutex and semaphore, we'll talk about. So, and this has further, basically these are the debugging flags. So and this has a list, wait list. So what is the wait list concept? Wait list is why what is the concept of wait list here? Why it required a list, by the way? Any guess?
To queue the threads.
Yeah, you are there. You are there. Yes. So basically, if you see, the same piece of code will be getting, as I talked about, right? The same piece of code can be called from multiple places, right? So what will happen is, like, once we open the code, I will talk about that. So it maintain a list that if a request is coming and if mutex is not available, it will put into the waiting. Okay. So basically the request will be added to the list, and whoever is in the first, he will get it chance. Okay. How the request has been basically assigned to the list, that will be basically getting your mutex will be getting assigned accordingly. So these are the three, basically these are the three important members of your mutex. Okay. These rest are, I think these are the, if you can enable this, you can see this as well. Okay. These are the basically the debug flag based. So mutex is defined inside your header file mutex.h. Now this has basically, if you take a look at the uh, basically, okay, let me talk about few things here. I forgot to talk about. So there are a couple of basically the prototype also. Mutex destroy, mutex init, right? So mutex init. Let's finish this and then we'll again, otherwise again we'll have to come back to this header file. So mutex init is nothing but we need, this is for the initialize the, this is for initializing the mutex. So there are the two ways basically. The older way, what people were doing is, if you remember somebody, there is something called define uh, underscore mutex. Okay, sorry. So define underscore mutex is nothing but this is a kind of a static way. So basically you just, what you have to do is just you have to provide this name, and what it does internally is it's like a struct. If you take a look, a struct mutex, then this is the variable, and then it is calling this micro mutex underscore initializer. Okay, and this mutex underscore initializer is doing this, honor is this, right? If you take a look, wait log, it is doing this kind of things. There's another one. The another way to do this is a kind of a, people say that it has a dynamic one, which is nothing but mutex underscore init. Okay, so mutex underscore init, where is that? Yes. So mutex underscore init. So there are the two ways which you can initialize your mutex. You can just call this, say you will have to define your mutex lock, mutex variable inside your program, and then you have to call this mutex underscore init function. So what it will do, it will initialize your mutex with the appropriate value. Okay. Now there are the other function will again come back, how to acquire a lock, how to release a lock, what kind of locks are there, we'll talk about. Okay, now let me go back to, so here the first thing we will talk from the kernel perspective, and the second program what we are going to take a look is we are also going to interact with the user space program. Okay, but let's understand first the basic concept. Now let me open what this code is doing, and then we will run this and talk about how this works. So this is just a, I will start from the header file. So the header file which we have used here is, the important one is mutex.h, that we have taken a look. Okay, linux slash mutex.h, the header file which is basically used for basically defining a mutex, or if you want to use mutex inside your uh, code, then you can include this file. Now we are basically defining a etx underscore mutex variable of type mutex, a structure variable. This is a structure variable of type mutex. This variable we are going to use inside our program. Now let me go to basically, let's first talk about init one. Okay, so init is basically, which is the init mode, init function for us. So this is a init function for us. This init function, basically this is kind of a character device code, device driver code. What we are doing is we are allocating a region basically, and then we are basically measure. So I will just bypass this. I mean, those who are familiar about this, then this is just a function which is basically allocating a region for the device. This is the device name, and then once you initialize, basically allocated the region, then you are going and initializing this device with the file operations. So f of c is an important things here. F of c is basically when you are writing a driver code, the file operations is an important thing here. Basically this means what kind of operations you are going to support with your device driver or device. Okay, so your file, sorry, your device might be, I mean, somebody will be interested to read in, somebody will be interested to write in, somebody will be interested to open it. So these are the very basic. There are the other file operations based on your requirement, you can go and add it here. Okay, so this is just an example. So once you add this said cdev underscore init, creating a cdev is nothing but character device. There is a cdev bdev, okay, netdev. So There are the, I mean, if you talk about the Linux device driver, the very first one is character device driver, block device driver, and network device driver. So we have three parts. Okay, so this is one of them, cdev. And then once we initialize this, then cdev underscore add is nothing but we are going and adding this to the virtual file system layer. Okay, vfs layer. So at the high level, once you add this, your basically the virtual file layer, virtual file system, vfs layer will be able to help to, to the user space, that if somebody will be calling, then he will help to move this call to the down to the kernel space. This is something called, again, we are creating a class of device, and we are going to add this device to this class. Okay, so dev class, if you see that this is the device which we have created, and we have basically device create, device class create, device create, and this is kind of a class you can basically create, and you can add your devices to that. Now the important piece of for us is we are initializing the mutex. Why we are initializing the mutex, I will talk about this. So this is the variable which we have used, which we have defined at the very start, and we are calling this mutex underscore init, which we have taken a look into our uh, code, a mutex.h header file. Okay, now these are the two threads, kernel thread basically. Okay, we are creating it. So kernel thread, again, it's a very huge topic. So for time being, k thread underscore run. Anyone use this k thread underscore run? Any idea? Anyone? Might be a new for someone. K thread underscore create. No?
Yes, I have used it some of my development activities.
K thread underscore create or k
Create
thread underscore run.
and underscore destroy.
Okay. Okay. So k thread underscore run is basically, it is going to create a thread and it will run this. Okay. So whatever the two steps you are going to do with k thread underscore create and other, the same thing, it is going to taken care by your k thread underscore run. So if you take a look, thread run, thread underscore function one, and this is basically description about the thread, and we have passed this as a null, attributes as a null. Okay, so we are creating two threads here, thread one and thread two. Okay, etx thread, once it will successful, it will return a thread id, and then this will be again, so thread 2. Now the moment it will create, it will start running as well. Okay, so that is what the k thread run does. If there will be some problem, then what we are doing is we are basically jumping to the, we are going to the r underscore device, we are jumping to the r underscore device, where we are just deleting or basically destroying the class which we have created for our cdev. And then r underscore class is another one, where what we are doing is we are just unregister cadev region and cdev delete. Okay, now let's jump to, so, and by the way, these are the file operations functions. Okay, etx underscore open, which we are just printing some just line here and there. Okay, etx read, etx write. So we are not doing any specific operations here. Okay, we are just taking a look at the kernel code, that how it is happening. So these are the two functions, these two kernel thread. Okay, these are the two kernel threads which has created, once we run this will be getting created and this will start running. When this is going to stop, question is when this thread will stop? Any idea? We have created a thread. Ideally, when you see a thread programming, you can see a,
To do a k-thread destroy something, right? That's what.
no. Oh, yes, k thread destroy, yes, but how much time this thread will run, or when, or the other question is when this thread whether this thread will run or not. If it will run, till what time it will run? Normally when you see a thread in application side, you put a indefinite while loop, right? Infinite while loop, and then you can do some sort of things here and there, right?
K-thread should stop is the one which is deciding factor, right?
Yes, k thread should stop is a
There's
deciding
some
factor.
signaling
Yes.
factor which happens. I done long back. Let me see.
No, you are right. K thread is should stop is a deciding factor. But when this k thread stops, k thread should stop will be getting called.
When this thread function one getting called in the thread.
Sorry.
So when this thread function one gets called, then this will get called.
Okay, so this will be k thread should stop is basically this is a signal oriented. Okay, so when k thread underscore stop will be called, okay, so when k thread underscore stop will be called, then this will receive a signal. Okay, so if you notice, we have anywhere k thread underscore stop? Yes, k thread underscore stop is where it is inside your driver exit. So this program will be keep on running. This thread will be running unless you go and call this k thread underscore stop. Okay, so k thread underscore stop will get, I mean, basically catch it. What it will do, it will k thread underscore stop will send a signal, and if it will, I mean, it return a true if set, false otherwise. Okay, so that is why if you see, this will be keep on running till you go and say that remove the module or exit. Basically you are going and exiting this module from the kernel repository. So this is basically, so this will be keep on running. And here if you take a look, what we are doing is there is a global variable. There is a global variable. This global variable are going to get used inside these two functions, two threads, I mean. Okay, so these two threads, so basically how you can protect this. So this is very basic program. The second one will be a little bit more complex. So when you are, so this piece of code, by the way, this piece of code is a, what is this? This is a race condition. Okay, and this we call it as a critical section. So this is a critical section where we have to make sure that how we are going to protect this. Okay, so when you come or when you see a critical section, what you have to do is you have to first, the first thing is you have to identify the critical section or the critical piece of code which can be getting access from, yes, all this code will be getting access, but you have to make sure that which will impact, which will be having a more impact. Okay, or which will be having a problem if it is getting called from multiple places. So etx global variable is a global variable which will be getting access from multiple, I mean, threads or multiple processes. So you have to make sure that I want to protect this, and how you are going to protect this is you are going to use a locking technique which is a mutex, and mutex underscore lock. Once you put a mutex underscore lock, what it does here is basically the line number, let me just display the line number 45. What it does is, here if you notice, you are passing a mutex variable, a struct mutex we have defined at the very beginning of the file, and we have initialized this variable, by the way. Okay, so before, you have to make sure before when you are going to call any mutex log or unlock function, you should make sure that you should initialize this variable, otherwise the result would be unpredictable. Okay, so we are passing this. What will happen is, like, then once this will be there, then it will block basically the other call. When the other call will come, what will happen is, like, it is going to see this variable, whether this variable is grabbed by some mutex. Once it will come to know that yes, this is grabbed by this someone, then that process or thread will be moved to the wait queue. Okay, so there are the two queues, by the way. This is from the scheduling perspective, but I will not go into the scheduling. So it's, there is a ready queue and there is a wait queue. Okay, so ready queue is like where your job will be getting picked up from the ready queue, And once what will happen is like, once it see that yes, mutex is not available, then it will send to the wait queue and it will be basically into the sleeping mode. Okay, so all the processes or the threads which are basically waiting for some input output from the user, or kind of a waiting for some signal, they will be moved to the wait queue. And when there will be a signal basically, so who is going to notify them? So basically, if unlock will be there, what will happen is like, if you notice, there was a list we were maintaining into the mutex structure, right? Wait underscore list. So wait underscore list, the entry will be added to the wait underscore list. And what will happen, it will basically, when it will be unlocked, again it will go and walk through the list that, oh, is there something into the list sitting? If there will be something, then again it will be basically come and grab the mutex, and again it will do the further further processing, and it will again. So this is how you can basically use a mutex underscore unlock is like opposite of lock. When you lock it, you have to make sure that unless you unlock it, nobody will get inside. Okay, so you have to be cautious when you are putting a lock. You have to make sure that what time you are going to unlock it. If you make sure that yes, now I am done with the critical section, and if I am going to unlock it, the next few instructions or the next instructions are not going to impact, even though it is a parallel execution. Okay, so this is how. So mutex lock and mutex unlock now, and there is a m sleep, by the way. So this m sleep is just to sleep for 100 millisecond, and then again it will come back and do this while business. Thread 2 is also doing the same thing. Thread 2 is having the same etx global variable, and it is also basically uh, playing with this lock etx underscore mutex. And yeah, it is basically doing the same instructions are there in thread 1 and thread 2. Now once we run this, let's see that how it goes. This is -c. Okay, well, let's make, so make file is nothing but it's a straightforward uh, okay, spin lock is a commented one, so just make. So it got ready. Now let's see that you need to do this ins mode to insert this module ko, and then the message. Okay, so you can see that major number, minor number you received from this device etx underscore dev is 234, and then you can see message k thread 1 created successfully. Moment it created it, if you notice this, what happened is like, in thread function 1, in thread device driver insert done, and then in thread function 2, and it's keep on going. So if you see, if you run this, you can see it is keep on going, because there is no any signal, nobody has called this k thread underscore stop. Okay, that is why it is, both threads are going. Now if you see the counter, it is like 68, 69, 70 it is. So there is no any discrepancy in between. Okay, so that is how your. Now let's now if I will just say rm mode, let's see that whether this thread is stopping or not. Rm mode mutex underscore driver. Rm mode mutex underscore driver. D message, you see, done. So this is now, if you see your thread, basically when you are calling this module exit, sorry, rm mode, internally you are invoking this, internally you are going to call exit module, exit function of this module. So exit function has this k thread underscore stop, and this is basically stopping the threads. Now mutex. So let's go back to a little bit. So this is just a very basic one. Now let's make it more complex. We are going to talk about from the user space as well, how the things work. Okay. Now let us go to a locking one, and here we're going to take a look at make clean. So here we are going to say we are going to have a read and writer function. I will talk about this read, what this read and write does. Let me delete all the executable. Okay. Now so if you take a look at the basically this is a very big one. So this program is mainly written for your character device driver, but I just thought of putting some checks here and there to basically for the mutex. Okay. Now let me go to the, so init is like char dev init. So when you are working into a kernel programming, the very first thing, if you are a new or if you want to debug anything, you have to first go and take a look at the init function. Okay, init function, basically init is nothing but your module initialization. What your module initialization, most of the code would be there. Okay, so almost all the codes would be there for your module. So this module, so basically this is a character device initialization function basically. This again, if you notice the previous one where we have called this alloc char dev region, the same function we are calling here to allocate basically major and minor number. And then again, once you do this, basically here is a basically allocating a space for the your device. cdev alloc is nothing but it is going and allocating, reserving a space in memory for your character device, and then you are initializing this device with this fops. Okay, so fops is nothing but if you take a look at the fops, again we'll have some set of functions here: read, write, open, release. llseek is another one. Basically when you want to move your file pointer from one offset to the other offset, you can go with the llseek. Okay, now this, once you initialize this, add this to the VFS layer, cdev add and all. So here there is a buffer basically. Okay, if you notice there is a char device buff. Okay, char device buff is a pointer. Okay, this pointer basically we are allocating, we are allocating kmalloc is a function to allocate memory from the kernel. So kmalloc, and basically this is a length and this is a flag. Okay, so this flag again, so this is a flag gfp kernel. There are many type of flags, so you can just take a look. So we have basically so idea here is like we have allocated a memory to max length. Max length is a macro which is defined of 4000 bytes. Okay, so 4000 bytes we have, basically we are allocating memory into the kernel, and then we are assigning this to this char device buff pointer. So this char device buff pointer will be getting access from multiple places. Now earlier program we had seen that a global variable was getting access from multiple threads. Here there is a buffer which is going to get access from your read function and a write function. Okay, so if you notice, if you see, let us see counter. Okay, so atomic underscore t, as I was talking about. So when you open a device where we are talking about that somewhere here, a driver open is getting called, and we want to maintain a counter that how many times this driver open has been called. So for this we have atomic underscore t, where counter is of type atomic underscore t, and this is basically lies to, and here atomic underscore inc counter we are incrementing by 1. And again, if you notice here, there are the few prints that we are printing the number of times open, major number, minor number, which is the process which has called. So there is a current pointer. Okay. So the current pointer will be basically pointing to the current process. Okay. So current pointer, the current is nothing but the current task where you are basically going to get the PID. So who has called this? You are going to get, I mean, we are also printing the PID of that process. Okay. Which process has called this dev open. And once you have this, so there is a read function and there is a write function. So inside the read function, let's first go to the write function and then we'll talk about the read function. So basically into the write function, these are the basically you have to make sure that how many, I mean, if you are sending some n number of bytes, make sure that it should get written. So these are the basically few logics. I will just bypass this. The main logic here is there is something called mutex lock interrupt table. So in the earlier program which we have seen, it was a mutex underscore lock. Here it is a mutex underscore lock underscore interrupt table. What is mutex underscore lock underscore interrupt table? Any guess? Anyone has seen this mutex underscore lock underscore interrupt table? What does mutex lock underscore interrupt table does? It will acquire the mutex, right? Plus it will do some set of things. Otherwise it will be same, right? Mutex lock and mutex interrupt table, both are going to acquire the mutex, but this will do some more thing, right? So what it is going to do?
It can be blocked.
Your mutex underscore lock will also be blocked.
I think basic mutex underscore log cannot be interrupted. That's what. So it disables all interrupts before acquiring the lock, the basic mutex underscore lock, and mutex lock interruptible doesn't disable any interrupt lines. I think that's the difference.
So basically, so yeah, you are right. So basically, it's like if a signal arrives, right? When you are waiting for the interrupt, I'm sorry, when we are waiting for the mutex, then it will be notified. Okay. So mutex lock interrupt table is like when there is a if a signal arrives while waiting for the lock, then this function returns EINTR. Okay. So if you just want to take a look at this, let us take a look at the mutex lock underscore interrupt table definition. It will be inside mutex.c, I think. TTY locking mutex.c. Yes, this is inside the fifth. So mutex underscore lock underscore interrupt table. You see, where is the, this is the one. No, this is scheduling. See that ww, no. Mutex log interrupt table, yes. So if you see acquire the mutex interrupt table by signals, I will talk about what does it mean. Okay, but when we will see the user space program, I will basically we will write some signals and see that what does it mean. But basically it is going to notify the signals if there will be signal basically interruptible signals will be there, it will be notified. Okay, so if a signal arrives, I mean while waiting for the mutex, it will be notified. Now at see, if you see log the mutex like mutex log, if a signal is delivered while process is sleeping, this function will return without acquiring the mutex. So this is the difference between mutex log and mutex log underscore interrupt table. So if a signal is delivered while the process is sleeping, this function will return without acquiring the mutex. So this is the main difference. Okay. So this is, if you see which context it is running, it is a process context. Return 0 if the lock was successfully acquired, or error interrupt INTR. Okay, EINTR if a signal arrived. So this is basically, if you see, you can just go and take a look. This is calling another one. So we'll see about this. Okay, so this is the function which we are using, mutex lock interrupt table. Now inside this, if you see, there are basically there might be, so once you put a lock here, so basically if a mutex, if mutex has already been acquired, it will wait here. If a mutex will not be, basically mutex will be available, then it will go and acquire this and it will come down. So it will be same thing as like mutex underscore lock. Now here is the buffer which we were talking about, care device buffer. Care device buffer is a common buffer which is going to get access from multiple places. Here for us it is a read function and write function. So we have made sure that what we are doing is we are making sure that before going and reading, so copy from user, copy to user. Okay, so these are the two functions basically. If you notice, this is a write. Okay, so copy from user, copy from user space to this. There is another one, copy to user. So when there will be a read function, there will be similar to this, it will be a copy to user. We'll see that. So this we are basically copy from user. Basically we are writing to this buffer. So this is the buffer which we have received. And now what we are doing is like, I'll just comment this out because we should not sleep. And then we are doing this mutex underscore unlock. So mutex underscore unlock, what it will do, it will just unlock it. And then similar to this, if you see, there is something called read function. So a read function also, when there is a read call from the user space, again we are mutex underscore lock interrupt table. And here again the same piece of code, if you see, copy to user, as I talked about. So buffer which we are basically we are writing the user content to this character underscore device buffer of kernel, right? This buffer is inside the kernel and we got some content from the user, we are going to write this to the device buffer. That is what the purpose is. So again we have make sure that when we are going reading or writing something to this buffer, let's protect this. And how we are protecting is using this mutex lock underscore interrupt table. So if some signals come in between, you are going to catch that as well. Okay, so that is what the purpose of mutex underscore lock and interrupt table. And then once you do this, once you finish this mutex underscore unlock, you do mutex underscore unlock, and then it will come out. So this is the very basic code. Now let us see how it works. So there are, let's talk about the user space functions or user space program basically. So the reader, there is a reader. This reader program, what it is going to do, it is going to open this device and it is going to read 4000 bytes from this device. Okay, so once you open this, you are going to read this some n number of bytes. And if you notice here, there is something called signal. Okay, for time being I will just uncomment this so that you will see the differences, what is difference between interrupt table and the plain basically mutex underscore lock. So we are not doing anything. We have just, I have just commented out this signal sigint handler. Okay, so handler, I mean basically this will be ignored. Okay, so you all are aware that how signal works. So basically there is a signal and there will be a corresponding to the handler. If you have basically OS maintains all this, so if you are writing your own handler, then whatever the default handler it will be there, it will be bypassed. Okay, so here in this code that this handler will be not getting called because it will be it has been commented Now, writer program, writer code, if you see, same thing we are doing is, what we are doing is, there is a basically this file or this writer program has a buffer of 4000. We're going to write this 4000. So this 4000 bytes is getting initialized to asterisk or the star, right? We are initializing this 4000 content with a star, and then we are opening this whatever the device file or the driver, and then basically we are writing this 4000 to this device, and then we are closing it. So very simple, straightforward. Now let us go ahead. If you take a look at the make file doesn't have anything, it's just a CAD drive underscore mutex. Okay, now let me compile it. So you compile first your uh, make, you compile the modules. There are some warning. So basically I have, so let's ignore for time being. Now your module has been compiled successfully. Now let's compile this application code. So application code, we are going to compile reader.c, and let me put this name as reader. Okay. So compile successfully. Let us compile this writer program as well and give name as a writer. So you have reader and writer now. So if you see file writer, file reader, you have got it. And yes, so two are now these two ELF file we have received. Now what we have to do is, let us clean this buffer device, sorry, dmessage and dmessage clear, and let us go and insert the module. So what we are going to do is, we are going to insert this ins mode utility and char mutex.ko kernel object. Okay, so we are going to insert this once. Okay, so let us say that ra mode char, looks like the module was there. So d message hyphen c. So if module will be there, you can see the message. Now let us, so your module has been inserted. You got a minor number 0, major number 235. Now what you have to do is, basically, so you have to come to the reader and writer. So I'm going to run this writer. Okay, so writer is basically 13562 opening device. It has written. Now if you go and write this, sorry, read this, sorry, cd dot read, sorry, reader, I think. Yes, so if you see, the reader has basically, it has opened and it has read from devices, this one. Now let us see let us enable the signaling and see what happens. Okay, let me go back to so this is just, I mean, if you notice here, so let me do a couple of things here. Okay, I have to put some sleep and then we can see the magic. So let me go back to driver program. Let me enable this sleep. Intentionally I'm enable this sleep. You ideally you should, this is not advisable that you should put any sleep in between this lock basically. So before I mean, when you are putting a lock and you are going for the sleep, this is again, you are basically delaying the things. So again, I have to remove mode mutex. So D message hyphen C registers. Now, if you see, let us run this D message. Okay, so it has now, let me writer, and here two reader would be interested. Okay, so there could be multiple reader, by the way. So if you notice what we have done, the changes is in writer code we have put some sleep. So writer is not going to release the lock, and parallelly we are going to see that when reader will be coming, what will happen when reader will be coming and there is already a lock is acquired by your writer. Okay, and multiple readers can, I mean, basically multiple readers are coming uh, one after another. Okay, so I am just putting this, let me just type here writer also, reader is there, here reader is there. So let's hit enter key. Oh, looks like writer code we have. Oh, basically we have not, we have oh, not sure we have compiled it or not. No, we have not compiled it. I think I missed it. Otherwise should wait for there. So make clean, it should wait, otherwise CAD driver mutex, where is the sleep for 30 seconds, sleep for 30 seconds. Let me increase this time interval a little bit so that we can do something before it expires. So I just put it as a 60 seconds and read. Okay, read, we don't need it, let it to come. So what you're doing is, we have done this, now you have to make this, do the changes. Okay, ls and the message hyphen c, you have registered it, clear the message, nothing is there. Now ins mode, what is that queue? So you've inserted the module, the message, you just verify it. Yes, you got this major number and minor number. Now what you have to do is, you have to just, let me run this writer first. Writer, reader. Okay, so writer, I think it should wait. Let us see. Yes, it's waiting. Now here I read, see. So all three are waiting now. This guy has done something and it has put a sleep there before unlocking the mutex. This came and is noticed that, oh, this somebody has already acquired a mutex, I need to wait. This came again and it also notified that, hey, somebody has acquired a mutex and I should wait. So all are three waiting. This, unless this is going to unlock the mutex, the other two or whoever are waiting, they are not going to get the lock or get the mutex. So if you see here, ps hyphen aef grip writer is still there. Okay, and if you notice 14477 is the PID of your writer, right? This was the PID of the writer. That's what we have notified. This came out, so this entry will not be the more here. Now this came out, so let us see here. This guy has read, this guy has also read this buffer. There's something I think extra printing, so we need to see that why it is printing. So this is kind of a, now let us see the interruptible things. What is I mean, what does it mean. We have seen the definition as well. So for that, what we have to do is I have to basically modify this reader code. We have to say reader file that you can use our handler here. Okay. Oh, before that I should say, okay, let us see something. Okay. Now see. I think I should notify that first, and then you can see the differences. Otherwise, you will not feel the differences. Okay, let me run this again and use. I should show something. Okay, so by the way, your signal is comment. I mean comment one. Now, if you go and say reader is okay anyway, no need to compile. So let us see. D message I need to see parallelly. D message hyphen C. D message clear. So I will just put here D message, and here I will go for the writer, and the other window I will go for the reader. So you can see the differences. A reader. Okay, so a writer, I have just put it. You can take a look at the D message. D message is like, now I'm going to put a reader. You can see, here if you can see, trying for critical region lock. There is a message from the reader block that it is trying for a critical region lock. Okay. Now if I will go and so this will be doing here. Now if you come here and see ps hyphen grip reader is there 14529. 14529 is waiting, is still waiting. This is here again, it is waiting. Writer, let us see the writer. What is the status of writer? Writer is also still PID is there. That means it has not been terminated. So D message acquired lock, reader acquired lock now. That means you might have seen that reader will be. So reader has acquired lock. Earlier it was waiting for this, trying for critical region lock. Writer out of delay releasing lock. This is a message just we have printed there into writer block, and it acquired lock executing critical code, and it has done the things. Now let me go and modify this code now, the reader code. So you have noticed that when D inside the D message trying for critical region lock was coming. Okay, so just remember it. When we modify and there will be a signal, you can see the differences there. Okay, so VIM reader. Let's see. I will just enable this signal, and then we can see this. Need to compile this reader.c and -o reader. Okay, so reader is ready. Writer, we don't have to do any changes. So now we are okay to go ahead. Yes. Now clean up the buffer. D message clear, and no need to. So module is running, so no need to do anything. What you have to do is we have to just put here D message just to show you, and here we are going to run our writer process, and it will be a writer process, and here it is going to be a reader process. So let us run this writer. You can see D message, you can see here. Now let us, I'm going to put a control C. Okay, control C is an interrupt, which is, see, interrupt signal handle. It is saying that interrupt signal handle, and when the moment you come here and see that the reader block again got something trying for critical region lock. So again, if I will do a control C, you see that the moment here again it is a 2. Again, if I will do something control C, you can see that there is another message. So basically a signal is getting notified. So if there is an interrupt, so it's a interrupt table. Okay, so interrupt table, mutex lock interrupt table is nothing but if a signal arrives while waiting for the lock, it will be basically it will be notified, and your function will return EINTR. So that is what happening here. Now, if you see, this will be done. And further, if you take a look here, out of delay releasing lock. So this is what your basically the interrupt table down, sorry, the mutex underscore lock underscore interrupt table does. Okay, so these are basically the locking. So I'm running out of time, so I am sorry that I have not covered the other technique, but we will try to cover the semaphore and what is the other technique is like the spin lock, the read writer lock, okay, in some other session. So you have any doubt? If you have any doubt, you can just, we can talk about in 5-10 minutes, and then we'll wind it up. Some messages were there. Sorry, I missed in between. Okay, that is from Praveen, everyone. So anyone has any doubt in this locking? I mean, basically the mutex from the mutual exclusion technique. I have not covered the slide as well. So these slides will have details of semaphore as well. So I will just basically, so these are the lock technique which I wanted to talk about basically. The pole and spin will not be part of this. So semaphore and mutex basically. So we'll talk about that. So this is, basically you need to understand this for how when a process creates, what happens. These are the process states. So we'll talk about in some other session. If you have any doubt, then we can close it today.
Is there a chance of getting deadlock when using mutex?
Yes.